For over 700 years, the Iberian Peninsula was ruled by Muslim rulers, who brought a legacy that still influences the region today. This period, known as Al-Andalus, began in 711 AD with the arrival of Muslim forces led by Tariq ibn Ziyad, and it continued until the completion of the Reconquista in 1492. One of the most notable figures in the early Muslim rule in Iberia was Abd Al-Rahman I, a visionary leader who established the Emirate of Cordoba and spearheaded a cultural and economic renaissance that would shape the region for centuries to come. Abd Al-Rahman I was born near Damascus, Syria in 731 AD into the powerful Umayyad dynasty, which ruled the Islamic world from 661 to 750 AD. His father was the Umayyad prince Muawiyah, son of the 10th Umayyad caliph Hisham al-Malik, and his mother was a concubine from the Nafza Berbers in North Africa. Being one of 13 sons, Al-Rahman was not considered a major contender for the Umayyad throne due to being one of the youngest members of his dynasty. The Umayyads' reign came to an end in 750 after they were overthrown in a violent revolution by the Abbasids, a rival Muslim dynasty from Iraq, who had gained support from the disaffected population of the Umayyad territories, who are unhappy with the ruling dynasty's perceived injustices towards non-Arabs, Shia Muslims, and non-Muslim subjects of the Caliphate. The Abbasids launched a successful uprising, and in a brutal massacre, most of the Umayyad family members were killed, including the ruling caliph Marwan II. Abd al-Rahman, who was just 20 years old at the time, was in Yemen when the Abbasids took power. Him and a few other members of his family had seen the writing on the wall and fled Damascus before the final stages of the Abbasid overthrow. Despite not being a major member of the Umayyads, Abd al-Rahman was still in grave danger, as Abbasid assassins were dispatched throughout the Caliphate searching for any and all members of the Umayyad family. Al-Rahman was forced to spend the next years of his life constantly on the run, living as a fugitive and trying to evade his enemies. He sought refuge in various cities throughout Egypt, Tunisia, and his mother's ethnic homeland of Morocco, where he gained the support of local Berber tribes who saw him as a potential leader who could challenge the Abbasid Caliphate that had taken control of the Islamic world. For years, Abd al-Rahman led a nomadic existence and often faced great danger from his enemies. He was forced to constantly move from one location to another, never staying in one place for too long. He also faced constant financial difficulties as his resources were limited and he had to rely on the generosity of his supporters to survive. In 755 AD, Abd al-Rahman finally arrived on the Iberian Peninsula, which was then under the control of the independent Umayyad governor Yusuf al-Fihri. It was here that Abd al-Rahman would make his bid for power and establish himself as the Emir of Cordoba, laying the foundations for a new dynasty that would last for nearly 300 years. Al-Rahman's arrival in Iberia was met with immediate support by many of the locals. The Emir, realizing that Al-Rahman could be a potential threat to his power, initially tried to forge an alliance through marriage, but it soon became clear for both sides that a conflict was imminent. Al-Rahman began to gather his own forces and build his own base, recruiting soldiers and followers from the local population as well as from North Africa. Abd al-Rahman spent the next year establishing a more solid foothold on the political landscape of Al-Andalus. His main rivals were the various local governors and tribal leaders who held power in Al-Andalus at the time. These leaders were often at odds with one another and vied for control of the region. Al-Rahman saw an opportunity to exploit these divisions and began to offer his support to different factions, playing them off against one another and gradually gaining their loyalty. Abd al-Rahman's first major military victory came in 756 AD when he overtook the city of Sevilla uncontested, while Emir al-Fihri was away quashing two rebellions up north in Zaragoza and Pamplona, two of the most unruly cities in Al-Andalus. This victory allowed Al-Rahman to establish himself as a significant military leader in the region and gain the support of many additional local tribes and factions. While al-Fihri managed to quash the rebellions, the fighting took a toll on his troops. He immediately turned south, fully aware that he was facing another imminent threat in Al-Rahman. The two armies met near the bank of the Guadalquivir River. Al-Fihri made another attempt to appease Al-Rahman and create an alliance with him. Nevertheless, the negotiations fell through and both armies made ready for battle. Unfortunately, no surviving sources give us any details about the battle or a size comparison of the two armies. Regardless, Al-Rahman won a decisive victory, and despite the fact that Al-Fihri survived, his army was absolutely crushed and he was forced to retreat. Subsequently, Al-Rahman marched into the capital city of Cordoba and proclaimed himself as the new emir. The victory was a turning point in Abd al-Rahman's rise to power. It allowed him to consolidate his position as a military leader and gain the support of many local factions who had previously been wary of him. He was also able to effectively establish a new Umayyad caliphate in Al-Andalus. Al-Fihri later made a second attempt to defeat Al-Rahman and returned to his position of emir. His army, however, consisted of his supporters from various parts of Al-Andalus as opposed to trained soldiers. This time, Al-Rahman made easy work of his army, and Al-Fihri fled to the city of Toledo, where he was promptly executed. His head was sent to Al-Rahman to Cordoba, who nailed it to a bridge, bringing a finality to this chapter of his reign. During his reign, Al-Rahman solidified Muslim rule in Al-Andalus and established a strong centralized government, putting an end to the constant revolt and instability in the region. Nevertheless, he still faced several military conflicts during his reign. One of them was an indirect conflict with the Frankish king Charlemagne. In 777 AD, Charlemagne invaded Spain with a large army after negotiating with the governors of Barcelona and Zaragoza, who were then subordinates of Al-Rahman. The governor of Zaragoza was supposed to lead the Frankish force into the city, but eventually reconsidered the deal, forcing Charlemagne to besiege it instead. The siege dragged for over a month, prompting the Frankish king to abandon it and return to France, ending his Iberian ambitions. Despite this, the city continued to be a source of trouble for Al-Rahman, sparking several other incidents during his reign. Al-Rahman also had a complex relationship with the Abbasids. Although he was a member of the Umayyad family, Abd al-Rahman did not actively seek to reclaim the caliphate from the Abbasids. Instead, he was content with remaining in Al-Andalus, focused on consolidating his power in the region. However, he did maintain diplomatic relations with the Abbasids and even sent them tribute as a way of acknowledging their authority. During his reign, Abd al-Rahman also implemented a number of administrative and economic reforms that helped to strengthen the Emirate of Cordoba. He centralized power in the hands of the emir, created a professional army, and established a sophisticated tax system. He also encouraged trade and commerce, which helped to stimulate the economy, setting the groundwork for the golden age which would occur during the reign of one of his successors, Abd al-Rahman III. Al-Rahman was also a patron of the arts and sciences, and his court became a center of learning and culture. He invited scholars and artists from across the Muslim world in Cordoba, where they could share knowledge and collaborate on new ideas. Under his patronage, the Great Mosque of Cordoba was constructed, which remains one of the most important examples of Islamic architecture in Spain. Abd al-Rahman's reign lasted for 32 years before his death in 788 AD, during which he built a strong and prosperous state in Al-Andalus. His legacy would continue for centuries, as the Emirate of Cordoba became a center of Islamic civilization and a model for other Islamic states around the world. Thank you for watching this video about the life of Abd al-Rahman I and the Muslim conquest of Iberia. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel for more content like this.